it snowballed. If the other guy had brothers and sisters and cousins that were there, then you got your crew together, and everybody got hose. The hose is not good enough. Let's make something that can kill easier than that. Let's experiment. Let's use the technology that we've been using to grow things and to help and feed. Let's use it to kill. Let's make something called a sword. Yeah, that looks good. Their hose not as strong as my sword. And so I get my crew together, and they all got swords. And the other guys that are protecting their land only got hoes. So after that debacle, the other guys say, I don't want that to happen to me. We got to make swords too. We got to make swords. We got to make something better than swords. Let's make spears. Let's use the arrows that we used to use to hunt turkeys. Let's modify them so they'll kill people instead. My crew keeps getting bigger. I gotta, because the other guy's crew is getting bigger. Let's recruit more people. And eventually, we got to remodel this business with this covenant with the earth. It's not working for me right now because it doesn't have a place in it for me to take the other guy's stuff. So I'm just gonna kind of forget about it, okay? In fact, Mother Spirit, we need a tough spirit. We need a God with a sword. He's gonna be my God. Forget Mother Earth. My God's gonna be the war God. Okay, and this is all happening during the fourth sun. It isn't happening in a matter of minutes as I am telling it to you now. It's happening in periods of hundreds of years, generations. It snowballs. It snowballs. Did I do something?
I think I did. I'm sorry.
I'm walking around all over the place going crazy. Bad things were happening. Not everywhere. Not everybody did this. A very wise but crazy person called Jose Arguelles gave a name to this. He called it a virus. And it really was. It infected people all over the world, but not everywhere. Okay, so there are places, pockets in humanity where the virus did not reach. To this day, they're still somehow continue to be immune to the virus. But unfortunately, the virus infected a lot of the people. And it spread, and it infected most of the people. Because we were becoming such successful species, multiplying in unprecedented numbers. The more people were made in these very prosperous places that grew so much food, some of these places became incredibly, inconceivably prosperous. Okay, lots of food, lots of surplus food, more stuff to fight over. Surplus food, territory. It's no longer Mother Earth. Now it's territory. Real estate. I need your real estate because it grows really good wheat. I need that wheat. And more wars, because now it had a name. It's called war. And the guy who could make the really good war became the king or the high priest, or sometimes both at the same time. The descendants of the ancient shamans who had this important job, this sacred job, became now the proponents of the most horrible thing. They were high priests standing on huge temples, ziggurats, and building giant monuments to themselves, to their own glory. Okay? And I control all the land, the resources. It's not Mother Earth anymore, it's resources. I control all the resources because I'm the king. And you all have to bow and scrape because you're my subjects. It's almost like you're my property. Even people become resources. People are resources, sometimes willingly, sometimes in the form of slaves. Animals are no longer treated with respect. They're just resources. And the more you get, the more. Don't think that this is new. It started back then. This mentality started back then. once the third son was over, the fourth son, once the fourth son was over, at the end of the fourth son, 3114 BC, the very beginning of the son that we're in now, the fifth son, humanity made a leap into a whole new era of insanity. The fifth age, the fifth son. Jose Arguelles, the crazy guy I told you about before. Has anybody ever heard of Jose Arguelles here?
What's his last name? What was his last name?
Jose Arguelles. A genius. Does anybody know in Southwestern Native American tradition something called kachinas?
Yes.
You know what kachinas are? Okay, kachinas can be expressed as statues made out of wood, but they're also expressed by dancers, people that dress up. There's special kachinas called koshari kachina, which are clowns. They're clowns. They act crazy all the time. They're nonsensical wackos, okay? They come out, they throw pieces of watermelon at people while this sacred ceremony is supposed to be taking place, and everybody's trying to do everything at the same step, in lockstep, and the ceremony is really intense, and everybody's all worried, and these koshari kachinas, all painted up, are throwing pieces of watermelon at people, you know? And coming up to folks and doing, you know, bad signs at them and saying weird stuff. The koshari kachina is like a sacred clown. There is a lesson there in what they do. You just have to be wise enough to see it. I personally believe that's what that's what Jose Arguelles is. Jose Arguelles is a koshari kachina. To many people looking from the outside, including unfortunately my friend John Major Jenkins, they just look like a clown. They don't seem to have any sense. But I really believe that there's a lot to be learned from a crazy person like Jose Arguelles. Incredible deep wisdom. And I suggest that you try to read this stuff. Because it can be really...
Can you spell his name for us?
Jose Arguelles. Jose Arguelles. He's the one that first came up with harmonic convergence. He wrote a book called The Mayan Factor, way back in the 1980s. And he's the one that first brought to consciousness the Mayan calendar. Jose Arguelles. A very wise man, but also very crazy. So Jose Arguelles called this last son, he called the sons for whatever reason. He called each son a castle. He said the first castle, the second castle, the third castle, the fourth castle, the fifth castle. Because he saw these as mazes, big buildings that humanity was traveling through with lots of little rooms. Okay? So the fifth castle, the castle that we're in now, which Antonio calls the fifth son, he called that the castle of history. And there's a lot of hidden meaning in that word. Yes, it was during the beginning of the fifth son that writing was invented in many areas of the world, and people started keeping historical records. But there's also another meaning. His story. It's no longer our story. It's some guy with a lot of power. His story. That's when it starts, right there. The castle of history. The castle of his story. He wrote it his way. And it's not just one he. There's a bunch of he's. And they're still around. We haven't gotten rid of them yet. We're trying. But he is still around, still writing his story, or trying to, because we've taken back the means of communication. And that's the important thing that's happening right now, is that we now can write story too. He no longer controls all the newspapers, all the radio stations, all the television stations. We've taken some of that stuff. Now there's NPR. Right? We took it back. And beyond NPR, I mean, we've got computers, we talk to each other on blogs, and we express what we're talking about. We went around him. Okay, we did an end run around him, and his story is not as relevant as it used to be. Because we've got our